preparing to go.
So I did have a question. I was trying to watch the planning commission meeting yesterday, and I tried to join. It went way longer than I thought it was going to. So I tried to join in the middle, and on YouTube, there's no way to start it from the beginning. But then it seemed like there was like a 2 or 3 hour delay before it got posted. So I didn't see it again until this morning, like the finished one. I was wondering if you knew what the mechanics were of that.
You said
She just froze up. Yeah, something's wrong there.
No, she's not.
There she is.
there you
She's either sitting
She's
perfectly
very,
still.
very good at that.
I mean, that's pretty good.
That was the Zoom meeting practice.
I was waiting for the answer to the YouTube question, actually.
So Ruth said that if you leave it running, that at the end, there's a button that you can replay it from the beginning. And so you don't have to wait until it gets posted to the page at the end. Okay.
All right, can we go ahead and start? I'd like to call the Fulham Police Committee meeting to order on today's date is April 19th, 2022. It is just a minute or two after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Those in attendance today are Chief Ken Rubin, Councilors Matt Lehman, Catherine Biscoe, myself, Teresa Nielsen, and of course our City Manager, Chris Workman. First point of first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on February 15th of 2022. Is there a motion to approve those minutes or any amendments to be made? Yes, sir.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, and I will second. All those who would like to, any further discussion, Catherine, or anything about the minutes? If not, could we vote then to approve the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Catherine, is that an approval? I can't see your
She's
hand.
clicking.
I'm assuming that I have to abstain as I was not in the meeting.
Okay, all right. That'll be,
So that's a good question though, because when I host all of our meetings at the chief, this has nothing to do with her
Right.
saying that, but we were reading about that, and I have a 20-person committee on the chief, 2 of them actually, and they say that most people approve minutes. What do you guys do at the city council? We approve minutes even if you're not there, as long as you read them and don't have anything to add.
Yep.
So you can do that,
Yep, absolutely.
but you can also choose not to. I mean, it doesn't really, I mean,
You can choose to abstain because you weren't at the meeting, but no, it's more than appropriate to read through the minutes and.
so you
approve
can
of them.
okay,
Yeah.
because that does come up every time, because some people, but they want to weigh in on something on the minutes and they weren't there.
Right.
And we'll
Yeah, I think
add,
this is wrong.
yeah, or hey, did you guys talk about this, and want to like follow up on the conversation we're having at the next meeting, and they add an agenda item off the minutes. We have that happen pretty regularly.
Yeah, it's kind of a different discussion outside of getting the minutes approved.
Right, get him right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
That's more like, less I have a comment about the minutes and more I have a comment about the last meeting that you had.
Right, and what people will do, it's like, hey, hold on, you should have been at the meeting, but then we get into those pretty funny arguments about it, but
Right.
anyway.
all right, so final vote was to approve and 1 to abstain.
Yep.
So we'll go forward and turn the time over to Chief Rubin.
Okay, so as you guys know, well, they're starting to know, you know more because you were on it last year. As we go along through the year, I try to brief you guys on things that are like coming up currently in the department, or on topics that somebody's asked a question about, or a counselor's asked me a question, or even Chris will ask a question. We know the answer because we just use the terminology. But sometimes I'd like to clarify different things for you guys. And I got asked a question not long ago about, I bring up a lot, we have to have this X amount of training this year, or we have this certification that we have. Why do we have that? And so I thought, it's a good time to bring this up about once every year, every other year, and what the actual training requirements are for our officers. So I thought I'd go about 10, 15 minutes to talk to you guys about that, and then entertain any questions, because it is confusing. It's even confusing to us to try to track it, because we get mandates from the legislature every year, different mandates for different kind of trainings and how it works. So I'll give you guys a quick overview. DPSST through their board, which is cops, legislators, and district attorneys, set mandatory training requirements every year. They usually,
SST is,
yeah, the Department of Standards, that's a good question because they changed it. Department of DP, Public Safety Standards and Training. It used to be DPST, now it's DPSST.
Nice.
Acronyms, man, I love them. So for police officer training, for you to be a certified police officer, the board has to meet every year to make sure that the standards that they set are still applicable to the job. And so every year they meet, they basically grant the last year's amount, and then they say, has the legislator added any specific training in the last session? And they do all the time. They add, I think cops need 1 extra hour of emergency driving, I'm just making stuff up, or CPR first aid or whatever, and then they'll add it. So then the DPSSD has to have a hearing. Okay, how are we gonna add it? Are we gonna put it on the agencies to add it and say, okay, now you're required to train your officers 1 more hour, or 2 or 4, it's usually more than that. Or is that something we only give to the basic recruits that are coming out of the academy? Is that where the added numbers need to be? So I wanted to kind of give you that, because I'm making it sound simple, but it becomes complicated because there's a cost to it all, right? How many hours? So I printed this up. I'll send you guys an email. I should have done it ahead of time on what the basic requirements are. So here's all there is, the mandatory requirements. This is for ongoing training, not the academy, because that's 640 hours of all kinds of training. But once you're out and you get your basic certification, which is that minimum training, and then you have field training for a year. And once you get out on your own as a police officer, what do you have to do every year? And here's the required training. 8 hours of use of force and firearms training, 1 hour of ethics, and that's it. However, they put a caveat on top of that. You have to have 84 hours of a whole big mix of training every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't say you have to have 20 hours in year 1, 24 hours in year 2, and 60 hours in year 3. They basically leave it to the agencies, and that 3-year period is a moving 3 years. So every 3 years, you have to, no matter where you start the 3 years, you have to have 84 hours of training in that 3 years. So if you get 60 hours in year 1, you only need 20 to get the next 24 hours to get the next 3 years. But at the next year, it starts over, and you still have to have 84 in the next 3. And keep moving. So it sounds easy.
And do they dictate what the 84 hours is?
Yes, and it's a mix of different things. And I brought my list. So I also wanted to show you what happened in this last legislature when they add stuff. This year, they added 2 hours of airway circulatory anatomy and physiology training. And that was because of the George Floyd. Even though we already had it in our policy to do certain things that we have as part of our CPR first aid training. One of the things is carotid restraint. And if you use carotid restraints on somebody, what you're required to do afterwards, which is in our policy and has been this way for at least since I've been here. And it was like that at DOJ when I was there. If you use a carotid restraint on somebody, you immediately have to call medics and have them evaluated. And they have to actually go to the hospital. They can't be just out at the street corner. There's actually a mandate. So, but a lot of agencies didn't have that mandate. So they actually mandated 2 hours of training. So what we did this year, which is different, the Chiefs Association got really proactive this last 2 years because a lot of the mandates that came out of the legislature, and we decided to provide the training from the Chiefs Association to the agency so they don't have to create it from scratch. So for instance, on this one, we had a doctor and an EMT do a 2-hour video surrounding this whole topic, all the different background, all the different ways something could be broken in your neck, cut off the carotid on one side, the actual airway being, blocked, all different things. And then our regular CPR first aid is in that 2-hour video. So the Chiefs Association actually paid to have this video produced, and then they push it out to us over the internet, and we can show it to our officers in briefing training instead of having a day where we have to call everybody in on a day, even on your day off, pay overtime, to people. Now we post it on Power DMS. There's a training site, and we post it, and then we tell everybody, take 2 hours of your shift and watch this video. And then they sign off on a card that they watched it. and then there's a little test you have to take, and then we send that to DPSST that shows up on their certification record that they took 2 hours of this training, so that meets their certification.
Gotcha.
So the Chiefs Association is doing that on all kinds of stuff now. They'll put out a 1-page bulletin on a bunch of different things we have to know, and then you do that and read your policy, and then you get a half an hour for whatever that training is, or whatever the mandate is. So it saves us having to try to find an expert to come in, and or what we do sometimes, which is not fun, so we have to team up. Hey, call up Benton County. Hey, are you guys having a training on such and such? Yeah, we're having it in August. Can we get 3 seats or 4 seats in there? And then we have to find 4 more seats for somebody else at another training. It just becomes difficult to track it and to find training for people. So that's what we've been doing with the Chiefs Association, which has really helped. So that being said, here is the list of the mandatory training that every year for our accreditation purposes and for the state, we have to have X amount of hours in all of these fields. I will send you guys this, but it's baton, which we don't carry anymore, handcuffing, bias-based policing, blood-borne pathogens, child abuse, use of force. We actually, our policy is, even though you have to have 8 hours use of force or firearms, so we have 8 hours use of force and firearms in our policy. So we do a full use of force continuum. We brief our policy every year. We have the guys have to take a test and sign off on a use of force on top of regular firearms training that we deal with on other stuff. Domestic violence response, emergency vehicle operations, like fire extinguisher use. It's my favorite. Hazardous materials, child abuse investigation, hate crimes, our spray, OC spray, emergency operations planning, taser, workplace harassment and discrimination, workplace safety, and then legislative changes in case law. We talked about case law changes. I'll tell you guys more about it. And Department of Policy and Procedures. So that 84 hours, they have to break that up, and they have to have a certain amount of hours in each one of those things. There's no set time for each one of those. But some of them take obviously longer than others, like defensive tactics, handcuffing is all kind of rolled into one. We get the county puts on a 4-hour class on that every year. DUI investigations. This year, we've sent people every year to what they call advanced roadside interdiction training. It's 2 8-hour days, which meets the standard, but it's trying to do a class on just some part of DUI investigations is hard because nobody teaches just like how to recognize somebody driving. So we send them to the state training, which has a district attorney that does the legal part of it. So we get legal training, we get policy training, and we get DUI training all wrapped up in this 2-day. So Blake Bowers is at that. It starts tomorrow. So when they come up about every 2 months, and we send 1 or 2 or 3 people to it as the years go through that time. But so so in addition to that, for leaders, for me and Dave, which sucks, we have to do all that too, even though we're managers. We have to abide by the minimum. But in addition to that, we have to have 24 hours a year on top of that, executive leadership training. So that's why we try to go to the Chiefs conference, because it's that is stuff like ethics, operations planning, planning for major incidents, legal updates, how to work with unions, any kind of stuff that management would get for law enforcement. They wrap it up into our Chiefs conference and try to provide it at the Chiefs conference. So last week we had 4 hours on wellness for officers, wellness training for officers, stress carcinogen, which is they've figured out that stress really is bad for you, especially our kind of stress, which sounds weird, but they've determined that, it's the Navy, Air Force, and Johns Hopkins and the Mayo Clinic have been doing a study on cops and firefighters and military people for about 10 years. And they figured out that there's military stress, which is you're in battle and you've got this stressful situation and it's really bad, and you get PTSD from it. Well, cops and firemen get this, it's really boring for 4 hours, and it's really intense for 10 minutes. Then it's boring because you're writing reports for 2 hours. And that is different kind of stress than the ongoing. And they figured out that kind of stress does something weird, and that's why cops die when they retire so quick, is they figured out that that's addictive. Plus, it's it does damage to your arteries of all things by getting rid of the plaque, not plaque, but the lining of your arteries where plaque gets built up faster than the average person. And they figured out that they could test it now, which is really weird. They have tests that you can figure out how that is by, they do give you a stress test, and when they take your exhaled breath out, they can test for some what's the word that they use? It's like an enzyme and a protein. And if you exhale this particular protein, it means your body is not providing this other protein to your arteries, which it should. And then they could go in with the ultrasound and look. So they just did it for Albany PD. They just had the test, and they found 4 people in the test that were like 95% artery blocked, and 3 of them were under 45 years old.
Dang.
It's because we have terrible diets as cops. We work all these weird hours. We get sleep, you don't sleep right. You don't exercise enough. And on top of that, you have this stressful, weird thing. So that was one of our 4-hour trainings. But so the leadership is this kind of, then we had an ethics 4-hour roundtable on ethics stuff, things that we're seeing in law enforcement. We had a bias training. We had this great speaker that came from the Dalles. He had gone through this he's a black police officer and had a really interesting story about how he got stopped in another state and how they treated him, and very good roundtable discussion on race relations and different things. It was great for us because it was a cop and it wasn't just an outside person coming in, hey, you're all racist. And there was he was one of 4 African Americans in the room out of 200 people, so this guy, it takes some guts to come in and talk, and he did a wonderful job. And Blake knows him. One of my guys knows the guy because they went to the same academy class, and he sat at our table, and it was really interesting. But so we have this training, and then we get credits for leadership training. So I tell Chris all the time, it's really hard to find it outside of the conference.
Sure.
And then we don't have to go to some other state. They host it right in state. And so it makes it nice. So that is the training. I'll email this to you if you have any interest, but I thought I'd brief you on how this kind of works throughout the year. The bad part of it is we have to keep book on everybody. And then every training we go to, we have to send this electronic form to DPSST. So I don't know if you guys know this. If you log in to DPSST's website, you can look at any police officer, their whole history, where they've worked, all the training they've had. It's all public. Every single class they've ever been to, how they, what academy they were in, and what courses were in their academy class, what certification level they are, and we have to track that. Every class they go to, we have to fill out a form called an F6 for every officer that goes to get sent, and then it gets posted on their site. And that's how they determine if they're meeting the 84 hours as they go. And then every year we get a report from them, Dave and I do, on where every officer is on their hours and how many hours they need in different categories and things. So it's a pain in the butt. It's a total, most agencies have the bigger agencies, Corvallis and Benton, they have a person, that's all they do. Right. That's it. They track training, they're the training lieutenant or the training sergeant, and they assign people to go to the training, and they sign them up for classes, and they do all the paperwork to keep up to date. So you had a question?
I did. I volunteer at a nonprofit in Corvallis, and over the past 3 years, we've seen a great increase in individuals coming there that have mental health issues. Is there training for officers regarding dealing with individuals with mental health issues?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have minimum 3 hours every year. So we have Department of Mental Health come and talk to us about different things going on that they're seeing. But also every 3 years, CPD, us, Benton County, and now OSU, we host a 40-hour, what they call CIT course. And everybody goes, and it's coming up this year. And Dave and I, thank God I don't have to go. I say that in a bad way. It's just, I've been to so many of these classes, I just can't take it anymore. But our officers go, and it's 40 hours, and it's all different kinds of stuff. Critical incident response, it has to do with police officer mental health issues. There's a whole day on that. There's dealing with the homeless. There's dealing with stress reduction at the call, de-escalating. There's stuff about warning other officers about prior incidents they've had with different people. There's working with local agencies, all of our state requirements of paperwork we have to hand people when we take them into custody that have mental health issues, and how to alert the district attorney's office. So it's 40-hour classes coming up. And then the beauty of that is that it does take into the 3-year part. So even though we still have the 3 years every year that we do for our policy stuff, and we have policy updates on mental health every year. There's something new almost every year on the mental health area. Like this year, the new one is identifying what medications they're taking, if we can, at a scene, so we can alert the ER. So one of the requirements is that we're supposed to, even though they haven't gone through the legal challenges yet, we're supposed to search somebody for if they have medication on them, if they're homeless, because they carry it around compared to us, we keep it at home.
Right.
And to try to alert the ER if somebody's en route in an ambulance of, hey, this guy's taking XYZ, so that if they give them medications in the ER, it won't countermand whatever medications are. So that came out as a new thing we're supposed to do, but it hasn't been challenged. So what if we search their pocket and we find some methamphetamine in there? So all the legal, they will come out with these mandates and different requirements that we have, but they haven't thought them through to the whole legal issues yet that come out. And that'll be wrestled as we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do get a lot of training. And this coming year is going to be a lot because they're opening, they're going to be, I don't know where it is now because it's fallen apart, but they're putting a new mental health center where the county commissioner's office is, because they're going to move them out when if the ballot measure all passes with the jail and the new district attorney's office and all this stuff. The new, I don't even know if they have a name for it. It's like a warming center / emergency operations center for mental health issues is going to be in the building. Was going to be. I think they've changed it. You know, Catherine? Are you aware? I know they've changed it twice now.
Yeah, it's the respite center, and yeah, it is the old Benton County Commissioners building.
I heard recently that that might not be good because it doesn't meet the earthquake standards. So they might be building a new building. I haven't heard the final.
Yep, hadn't heard that yet. Could be. That's the last news I had.
I heard that they might be, but anyway. So we're going to be getting some additional stuff from that and how to triage, and we're going to be taking people that have any kind of mental health issue on a call there, and then they're going to evaluate them there, which we have plenty of calls on this, but I know Corvallis they're slammed on these kind of calls. We don't have as many, but anything to keep them out of the jail, if we can, even though if they committed a minor crime or a crime, if we could get them keep them out of the criminal justice system, it's better. The way I see it, that's just my personal view. And if any kind of center, if we as citizens have to spend money on that, I think it's money well spent. Because if you're just putting people in a jail, you're not fixing, because a lot of times it's a medication issue or some kind of something like that, the control of medications or some kind of oversight that they not are participating in. And instead of being in a jail and getting in a fight with the jail or us, we can get them some much needed medications or some things like that. So that answer your question, kind of.
Thank you.
But we do get a lot of training, and this year will be the 40-hour course. I think I'm so glad I don't have to go. I know that sounds bad, but it's brutal. I've been to I think 3 different. I think I've got on my training. I've got 2 of those, 2 40-hour deals, and then at DOJ every year we had a big summit from all the district attorneys would come, and it was all mental health stuff every year. And to me, 90% of it is repeat, and then there's 10% of the new. And if they could just give me the 10% of the new, I'd be happier. So that's the training. I just kind of wanted to go over that because it's kind of you guys you'll hear, haven't had it because of COVID, but every once in a while something about training will come up and how expensive it is, or how that's all built into our whole schedule and getting people trained, and it's a pain in the neck, but I wanted you guys to at least know kind of what we do. So, any other questions? Catherine, do you have any follow-up questions or anything? Okay. Can I move on to the next? Okay, so I just wanted to brief you on this. I see a kind of a coming storm. I've talked to Chris about it, about personnel. There's a big problem with the academy right now. There's only 4 academy classes going on. They did not receive funding for the typical, I think, 6 or 7 that they usually get. So what that causes is, at the state level, for hiring a brand new person, if you hire somebody that's not a lateral transfer, but a new person, you have to, obviously, when you hire them, before you can give them an official hire date, you have to lock them into an academy spot. Okay, so because they trimmed the academy way back, and I can't get my head wrapped around why, although the director of DPSST resigned today.
Oh.
And I don't know he spoke the other day. I don't know what's going on. There's something going on, and I don't know if it's fighting between the governor's office or something he's got going separate. But he came in and said, "Hey, look, I can't. They won't let me open these academy dates. I don't know what to do. I need your guys' help." And it was like this really weird briefing he gave us about that he wanted to get a group together to do a white paper on how we need these more additional classes. Well, hold on a minute. You need classes. I mean, we're hiring, the whole point is the state's supposed to provide these classes. All these municipalities are hiring people. We're paying the employees through all of our taxes statewide. You're supposed to run this academy, and that's part of why we pay state taxes, is where's this money? Where did it go? Because the academy was fully funded last year. I'm not sure what happened. So, and I don't know if this has anything to do with him quitting today, because he was appointed by the governor a couple of years ago to make some significant changes in making more training available for police agencies and these academy classes. So what that does is when we're short, many of the big agencies obviously won't have a hiring process unless they know they could get X amount of people into a class. So let's say Portland Police Bureau is going to have 40 people in a class and take up a whole class, because they usually have about 35 or 40 people. They will tell them, hey, we're going to have a class. We're going to hire some people. Can I get them in class number 1? Okay, we'll fill up class number 1. Now we have class number 2. How many people are hiring people? Tigard's going to hire 9. OSP is going to hire 7. And then they have Fulham is going to have 1. And so they'll build these classes based on the need. Well, many of these agencies obviously are doing this, and then when you get to class 4, and then they fill it, and there's no more, what happens? That means all these other agencies can't hire anybody until they know that there's academy class. Well, if they're only going to have 4, and then the last one's going to be in July, what happens to all the agencies that are hiring people from July all the way to the end of the year? And then, of course, the big agencies are hiring more. They fill up the first class immediately, so that you keep push. So I don't know what's going to happen. I just wanted to bring this up to you guys. It'd be interesting to watch in the news what's going to happen, because this causes a major problem for us. We're the small guy, and usually what they do with us is they'll say, "Oh, we'll fit you in. Well, this one's full, but if there's a cancellation, because you're only sending 1, we have very little clout to say we are going to reserve 5 spots. We usually get 1 here, 1 here, and it really hampers, because I could have 2 guys leave by the end of the year. Mark, who can retire, is talking about retiring on his anniversary, which is in November. And then I've got Lucas Sinclair, whose wife just graduated from college and took a job in Montana. So he's gone, but nobody wherever they're gonna move is hiring right now. But when they do, I mean, he's an exemplary officer, and he will get hired. He went on a ride along, but it's possible that we can lose him, or who knows if anybody else. The problem is OSP, he knows all about this, and I wanted to talk about it today. For the first time ever since I've lived here, OSP this last year decided they were going to hire laterals. So what that does is they pay for, if you're going to compare an entry-level police officer, they make about $20,000 more a year than our guys do. So when you take laterals from agencies, and they hired 137 laterals.
Wow.
So if you just spread that out to the whole state, Corvallis has lost, I think, 3 to OSP. Benton County lost 2. Albany lost 4. They go to OSP. Well, then it's just a trickle. So then Corvallis has to hire,
Right.
and then
they pay a little bit more.
And they pay a lot more than we do. They pay about $13,000 more than we do at the entry level, and for the command staff, a lot more than that. But and then Benton County makes about pretty close to us. But it's just a trickle down. So I'm worried. This year is going to be the first year, even though I know there's officers out there that have reached out to us and would come to work here as laterals. I'm worried that it's one of those guys could get sucked up by one of these other agencies when it comes down to actually finding somebody. I don't think we're going to be in the position to hire a new recruit, like a brand new person. It's good before I retire. I can't see it happening because the other agencies snatch them up. It's so hard to find people now that when a brand new person, when I say new, not an experienced officer, wants to get hired, we're competing with OSP and mostly Corvallis PD, because they're gonna, every woman that I've had on my hiring list that have put in, they get hired there, because they make 13, of course, they're gonna, hey, how about you come over here, we'll pay you $13,000 more. So like Blake's wife, Rhoda, who's awesome, love to hire, I'd still like to steal her away. She could have gone anywhere she wanted, and of course she went to Corvallis, makes a lot more than her husband, works for me. So, which, I'm still trying to steal her, but trying to figure out a way. She's pregnant right now. I'm figuring out a way if I can get her over here and get around the rules about having two people that are married working for the same police agency. But anyway, that's a whole nother side thing. But
Do you know if the academy next year is going to have full schedule?
I don't
yet?
know. We have, they're on a 2-year, the state's on a 2-year
Right.
thing. So this next legislature will be very interesting. I don't know what they're going to do. As chiefs, we're talking about having an emergency meeting with the governor's office and saying, hey, what happened here? And that's what they're doing. I think today they're talking about doing something like that. He resigned today. I don't know what's going on with that. So that puts us in a position that's good, actually, and now we've got no director. Let's have a meeting. And by the way, what are we doing here? What are we going to be doing the next, 6 to 8, 10 months? If you look online, there looks like there's classes there, but they're not. They have classes set out ahead. They have numbers attached to them, but they're not there in the budget, supposedly according to him. And they're the ones that are in the queue are full. So
Gotcha.
luckily we don't have to. I know Corvallis PD's got people in the queue waiting to go because they just hired, I think, 4 people. By the way, the hiring situation is really weird. I've never seen it like this. Not a lot of people want to do the job anymore. I think it's just the negative stuff over the last couple of years, and I'll blame it all, like I'm sure people did when I first started. They blame it on the new generation coming up. It's hard to find people that will want to work at night, like 24/7 and work, shift work, and it's people are resigning. Corvallis just had a guy, great recruit, Pat, went through the academy, worked for like 5 or 6 months. Said, I don't like this. I don't like these hours. I didn't sign up for this, and he quit after they spent all the money on. He just said, I just didn't think it would be so hard to do it, because it is hard on your body to work at night, and your family's working during the day and you're trying to raise some kids or something. It's not great, but it's good living. The people that do it love it, but trying to find new people in the new generation, I'm sure they said that about me. Those whippersnappers, right? Coming in, working, on weekends and holidays, and their families out going to a ball game and they've got to work and those kind of things. That takes a different mindset to hire those type of people.
How is it to hire from out of state?
Really hard. Because those states are going through the same thing.
As far as like
the pay and all that kind of stuff, or
no, like accreditation and stuff like that.
You mean like a person that's already a cop?
Yeah.
Depends on if they have what they call a post academy. So I'm just going to quote you a number. I think it's like 38 states have academies that are what they call post. I can't remember the acronym, but it's basically a certification process that many states only have like 300 hours of training. Ours is 640, I think, and it covers a bunch of different topics. And then you get certified in these different levels. Like California is the same as ours. So we could take California laterals straight. You have to go through a 2-week, what they call COD, Career Officer Development course, to update on Oregon laws compared to California laws. Sure. But all the other basic premise about use of force and all the legal stuff is we accept it. We accept them, Nevada. I don't think we accept Montana, but we do Idaho, Washington, and there's some that are just on a completely different kind of a deal. A lot of states, the academy is just the legal piece, and then the agencies do all the other stuff.
Gotcha.
So if they have a certain amount of hours of training, and then they could get the DPSST would review to see if that matches different parts of our mandatory training, then we can get them from other states. OSU just hired 2 people from Illinois, and I know they had trouble. They had to go to certain training to backfill that was stuff we mandate that they didn't.
Gotcha.
So every state's a little different, but most of them are pretty close, and then some of them you can just go straight across. The problem is, if you come from the Bay Area, you're making $125,000 a year.
Right.
And then oh, I'm gonna move, like when I left LA County, I took about $35,000 pay cut to move here. Although the cost of living was different,
Mhm.
it's a dollar figure,
Yeah.
and that dollar figure it attributes to your retirement,
Sure.
right? So, making a decision like that's pretty
Sure.
big jump.
Yeah.
It was well worth to come up here, but but those are decisions people have to make. It's a quality of life thing, or
Sure.
you don't want to work in the big, you don't want to work in Oakland anymore or something. Oh, I'll move to Oregon. I can get out of here. That you get a lot of that, and then Seattle PDs lose bleeding people big. They've lost, I think, 200 because all the stuff going on up there with the politics and the
To not prosecuting.
and then
Yeah.
Portland Police Bureau, I think down 135, 138 right now. And it's a police officer apathy is a big issue. We had a big long discussion about that last week, where you're going through this whole rigmarole of trying to arrest somebody, risking your safety, and then the DA's office doesn't prosecute. So why?
Mhm.
We're getting close to that here. Our DA's office, I don't know what's going on. I say that out loud, so people can watch it. A lot of people aren't going to jail, and it's just the jail systems. They've reduced the funding on the statewide on the prison stuff, and then they have the Prison Reduction Act. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. They've slowly peeled back on how many people can actually be in prison. And then the COVID on top of that, the last couple of years, there's not a lot of prison beds. So they either go locally, and we don't have a local jail that can house anybody because it's too small. It's a 35-person jail. It should be, Lynn County's got a 200-person jail. So do the math. Why? So if we arrest somebody for Dewey, they don't even go. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Well, I've talked about it before, but if we arrest a drunk driver, we book them and release them. They don't go to jail unless it's a serious felony.
Mhm.
So so what do what kind of, deterrent is that, over time? And then we're seeing the numbers from my prior briefings on other issues go up. And I think we're not as bad. We're holding steadfast, at least in Fulham, but Corvallis is getting smoked. I mean, they're averaging 80 car break-ins a month and about 15 to 18 burglaries every month. And we have, if you compare to the actual population, a lot smaller. But nobody's going to jail. So, I mean, what's the deterrent if you steal a car? Although there's certain things going up. We've had 4 cars stolen already. And last year we averaged about 1 a year. We've already had 4. We caught all 4 guys though. But, which I like to brag about.
Returned all 4 vehicles.
Huh?
And
returned all 4
Can we
vehicles.
put that on the reader board?
Yeah, you put it on the report. But it was all.
Don't steal a car here.
I don't want to use the word luck, but it was luck. I mean, not luck. Guys were in the right spot at the right time, and people saw 2 of them. People saw their cars going out of the driveway and called 911, and we were able to get them. And then Corvallis PD, we got on one really quick. Corvallis PD stopped the guy, and we got the car. So, but there's 4, and we're just getting the Lynn Countyites coming across, and I keep telling Chris, we need to build a wall at all the entrances into the Fulham. If we could just do it like a checkpoint,
Right.
we keep all the criminals out. But anyway, I think we're going to see over the next year or so. The crime is definitely going up, and I think Measure 110 and
Mhm.
some of the things I've briefed you guys before is causing. I can't say for sure, but I think it is. But I guess there was an article in the Oregonian last week. Did you guys see it? Guys were talking about in the office. They did a big story on Measure 110 and all the impacts and the crime and drug-related crimes in all over the state. It's not just in the valley, but
That's true.
so. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted you guys to talk about that a little bit. And any questions on the person? I told Chris this year, this is the year. He's gonna throw something at me. I wanted to add an officer this year, but we were really close on the budget. I think we're at the point now, it just calls for service, and just the next year for sure we need to add. We've had the same amount of officers for 20 something years, and with the additional people living
I
in
was gonna say
town,
population. Yep.
it's just the calls for service are up, and just the time element on different things that we're required to do now is just skyrocketed. Like I was telling you guys, the average time now for DUI arrest from start to end is about 5 to 5.5 hours. So that takes an officer out of the field for that whole time. And what I say, we're at 53 DUI. I mean, that's just nuts. And if we go right now, we'll break that this year. We're already up. I mean, I think we've got 10. So that would be like we're 100, which we won't get to, but I think we've got 10 DUIs already.
So what made you not decide not to hire an officer this year with those considerations?
Just budget, it was just pretty tight.
We do have in there a code enforcement officer, and so we are budgeting for a new position. It'll be at the PD, it'll be code enforcement, so they'll have a, polo shirt and khakis, maybe a hat that says Fulham on it, but they're not gonna be armed and trained police officers. But they're gonna do a lot of code enforcement stuff, so high grass, people sleeping in the
Abandoned cars,
all that kind of stuff. So
people sleeping in trailers.
That's going to take some of the load off of the officers to free them up to do stuff that we want them doing when they have a badge and a gun. So we're going to see how that goes. We've been needing a code enforcement officer for a couple of years anyway.
To give you an example, Corvallis has 3 of them. That's all they do. And most cities have at least one person that does it full time. I could bring up all these weird cases we've had that have taken tons of hours.
Right now it kind of gets balanced between officers or Dave or Ken or me or Pat.
Like yesterday, what did I call you yesterday? Hey, go drive on Hauser.
Right.
So it's like this. Okay, he goes up there, I go up there. We're walking around. We're doing it, which is, it's an unquantifiable dollar figure.
Sure.
But it's time, and so I have to eventually get somebody like Dr. Brandon today is going to go up and take some photographs, and, write a report because we won't get into the incident, but and that's a long-term one there. That's going to be
it's follow up,
and it doesn't mean we'll have to spend the whole 20. It could be if it's as needed, and we have an officer every week doing something. Going around, touring around, answering. We get the code enforcement requests that people send in online. We get,
I think we'll fill the time. But the point was, rather than getting a full-time officer, we know we need a code enforcement officer anyway. Frankly, I think it's not a great use of our full-time officers to be going out getting complaints on that kind of stuff anyway. Just pay scale wise, so we can pay him quite a bit less than what we'd have to pay our full-time officers to do it. Part-time position, take the load off, and we're going to run that for a year.
Plus, it'll also keep, like we said, that a lot of the stuff can be handled before a violation happens. And I think just as a city, it's a great investment to get education, so we can take people a warning. Here's the code. Here's the municipal code. If you clean up your yard, but somebody can track that and come back in a week and fix, get this junk out of here or whatever, and then we won't have to call the cops to come write you a ticket and then get you into the court, and then there's a cost. There's all these hidden bureaucracies and costs that are, that you don't see on paper. That I think this kind of a program, Dave, Chris and I have talked a lot about this. I think would eliminate a lot of, not only that, just nobody wants a cop showing up because your grass is too long. Okay. What the hell you got? We catch a lot.
Someone goes speeding by in the background while you're talking.
Exactly. That's the exact.
That's true.
Kind of thing that it would be.
Well, it lets you play that kind of good cop, bad cop. That's like, hey, if you work with me, then we don't need to get the police involved. Right. But if you're not going to work with me and you're not going to get your stuff done, then I'm going to have an officer come out here and they're going to have to sign.
We do it at low key, and 99 times out of 100. We talk to the people and it all works out, but it's just a cop showing up at your house,
right?
Because you've got an abandoned trailer on your property, or you've got a car doesn't have the proper tags on it. It's parked out in front of your house,
and your neighbors don't know why the cops are there.
That's right.
They
That's
just
true.
know
Oh, look, the cops are over his house again.
Yeah.
It's just a better way to do it.
The other idea for that position is to do some positive reinforcement stuff too. Like they could host the, most improved front yard competition, or the, best kept front yard competition, that kind of stuff, to kind of do some positive reinforcement stuff as well. So it's not just all negative, but there's some.
Is there a career path for that position?
It's in the budget. It's in the police.
My thought is I was telling him just today, I've got a guy, who might be retiring. It might be the perfect job for like a Mark Kepi, who is just, he's a 10 when it comes to that kind of. That's
sure.
It could be something like that, or it could be a young person, or it could be a retired person's job that, we've talked about. Some people have come to us and asked us about it in the past. People that have volunteered on the city council or done other things that have shown interest in doing something like. I think it wouldn't be hard to find somebody.
Is that full time or part time?
Just a part time.
Just a part time.
Yeah, it's under 20 hours, so no benefits. It'd just be hourly. Yeah, I think it's great for recent retiree that's got some good experience, or somebody that's new up and coming, maybe they're trying to get into
Or they're going to
academy or trying
college,
get hired
or,
somewhere, and
or some, be quite frank, could be a kid. I'm not a kid, but some young person, because Corvallis has what they call CSOs, community service officers. And they just get trained on how to take police reports and to go do tag cars and to work with citizens on different things. I think it'd be
focus
one
on
level.
code enforcement, community
Huh?
service officer. Maybe that's what we should go for.
Community service officer instead
Code
of
enforcement, even code enforcement officer just sounds kind of
Yeah.
enforcement. So I like the CSO.
Yeah, I think, we could call it a community livability officer, like Corvallis does. And then-
That's right.
That's what they call theirs. That's what they call the people that do the enforcement on the homeless people, community livability officers.
Yeah.
All right.
So is there a
Okay.
vehicle for this person that we have, or do we have to, is that another thing?
We have the red car, but
Yeah,
we
we can just put it in the focus.
I think we can, I think we could fit it all into our, all the other infrastructure stuff, because the person would have to have training on how to use our the report writing system and have the clearance to be in the office and
Do the
little
radio.
background checks and all that kind of stuff, because they're gonna have access to some
Right.
things in there,
Give
radio.
them a cell phone.
I think once you get it going, I think the cost would be low, and I think it'd be a really good program. But next year, I'm still coming for another officer.
Yeah, there you go.
I just think this year, you lose one guy for an injury or a surgery, and then, I've got we have to, can't take a vacation for X amount of months because we're backfilling. And the problem is, if you ever look at the way our schedule, I think I've showed it to you on paper, she's seen it, but if you ever want to look at it, if you look at the schedule out, when you lose one person just for being sick, then you're running somebody at night by themselves for extended periods of time, because we have 3 guys that overlap. You lose one of those, then the 4 hour, they work 4/12s. So if you work 4 and 4 like this, 2 different officers, there's usually an overlap officer that works the 2, so you're always with somebody. But if that person's gone on vacation or gets sick or has back surgery, like Mike is out for 3 months, then these guys are working by themselves for 3 months in a row, which is, in my opinion, it's unacceptable. There's just, it's just not, it's not fair. It's just dangerous. I think I don't want to overplay it, but it's just, we're at the point now, which is the calls for service. I think next year would be a good time to take a look at this, and
But that's still up for discussion.
yeah, I'm going to win this one,
Yes.
but I'm going to win it. I'm going to win,
Well-
but I could show the numbers, and it's just, we just don't have, the county's short people, and we just don't get the backup as quick as we used to. And when everybody's short-staffed and Corvallis doesn't come because they just don't have enough people, and they're now busy with, because OSU has their own police department, so we just don't get backup from them hardly at all anymore. We used to quite a bit. So it's just about how much time it's like, some of it, it's hard for me to argue because it's unquantifiable. I can't. Guys will come in, oh man, I had a guy at gunpoint for 6 minutes. And those are things we need to start writing down, because those are the things that could cause if somebody have to use some force that they normally wouldn't if they had a second person, those kinds of things. And I think the county's seeing it more because they're short staffed. They're actually running they actually got rid of the street crimes team, which is Matt, Mosier, and Kyle. They just dismantled the team because they don't have enough people to fill shifts, regular shifts. So everybody's short, and when the big agencies that are close by that we rely upon to back us up are short, it does impact us. So I'll be coming to you guys next year.
There you go.
I'll be begging. I'll win.
Well, I had a couple things I wanted
Sure.
to chat with you about
Sure.
that may be related.
Okay.
So I'm on the League of Oregon Cities Transportation and Legislative Committee.
Okay.
And 2 of the topics that came up in the legislature in the past that haven't passed, and just wondering how much emphasis maybe it would be for us to put on it, are the red light and radar cameras, and then local speed, being able to set local speed limits. And wanted to kind of get your thoughts on either.
That's
or
It's a can of
others.
worms. I'm all for, if you guys, there's obviously a cost to the program where you have the automatic ticket machines and the ticket light things. I think to do that, you would have to, and this is what I always go to him with, is, and we could do that maybe with our new traffic program. If you would have to show, to be able to justify that you would have, that would impact safety.
Right, that's the primary
Which
emphasis.
is a lot harder once you start trying to get your mind wrapped around it. You would have to, do we have accidents at a particular spot?
Mhm.
Have we written so many tickets that we believe that this particular spot, let's just say it's a left turn on from 19th from Main Street. Is it so dangerous that we need this device?
Mhm.
So most judges don't like them unless you can show because it's a judge situation, you have to
Sure.
talk to the judge, that there's so much danger at this particular spot that we need this device because a lot of people will look at it as just a money grab for the city,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So, and I'm just telling you this, I've told them, I don't think there's a place in our city that's that dangerous yet
Mhm.
with our current traffic patterns to warrant some spending money like that yet.
Okay.
There's a lot of cities, and I'll just be quite frank, that do it for money.
Sure.
And Beaverton's obviously been accused of this for
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
And I don't think our city is I came to the city for a reason, because the way I think the city is managed amazing. You guys all do a great job, and I'm not just saying that. I came here because we don't do things like that. And to me, a lot of those things are unethical, like writing tickets specifically to generate revenue, I think is a bad way. You do it for safety, and you do it for making it safe for pedestrians and for other drivers, right? So, and if we may be at the point where it's hard to control speeds, and there's places in our town that we can write tickets all day and it doesn't impact the speeds. It's just people are going to drive fast. Those are the kind of places you would put it.
Right.
But I think this gigantic change that you guys are funding with the streetscapes is going to have an impact in the exact areas where we have our biggest speed problems, which is going out of town where you're gaining speed to go out, and when you're coming in from town where the speed limit's 20 or 25 miles an hour more than when you hit town.
Right.
So it's, and like I told you guys before, over 90% of the tickets we write are people that do not live in the city of Fulham.
Sure.
So, which is good, but it's also bad because it's hard to educate people that are coming from outside that we want you to drive 25 or 30 miles an hour in our town compared to people that live here, right?
So some of the things that came up were from towns that do have them,
Mm-hmm.
and indicating that just putting up the sign that says, hey, this is radar enforced with automatic tickets.
Right.
Automatically slows people
It
down.
does.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. If that's the real reason, I'm cool. I just got to believe that would be the reason.
Right.
And I'm 100% in on all those kind of techniques.
And then do you think that would impact your staffing requirements at all?
No.
No. Okay.
I don't think it would.
And then the local speed limits thing, is that a big deal?
I think generally our speed limits are pretty, I can't think of a spot where I would change one. Can you? I would say that
I think Chapel Drive will drop over time. I mean, it's a freight route, and we may get a little pushback on that.
because half of it's in the county too.
But I think as
yeah.
we see more development off of Chapel Drive, I could see that limit coming down a little bit. But that's a county jurisdiction road. We'll be working with the county to try to push for that.
I think this is mostly pertaining to state roads like 2034
Yeah.
in particular.
Yeah.
Like that like you said, the transition from
Right.
the top of the hill to Dairy Queen.
Right.
We talked about
Yeah, we
keeping
talked-
the speed limit lower further out, like wait till you get past the tracks before you jump up to 35 or
Right.
40. And so I could see maybe expanding that 25 out a little bit longer, but a lot of cities, they've got a highway going through town and it's 35 through
Right.
town,
Mhm.
right? And so
Perfect example of that is
fortunate
Sweet Home.
we're-
Sweet Home's a good
Home's
example.
35, Veneta is 35. I mean, so I think we're fortunate to be at 25 through town, through our down.
Then you have the other, I've argued with him about it. I mean, not taking any sides one way or the other against my senior manager paying my paycheck. But I'm one of those, if the natural speed, I call it like the natural speed. The natural speed, if it's a fair speed, usually that does, make it safer generally. But then you have, the one-offs where people will pull out and it's harder to stop if you're going 35 and somebody pulls out in front of you, right? So if you have all these businesses, usually it's like 9th Street, Walnut. This is one I always bring up. Walnut, like right when you turn onto Walnut from 99 and you're going west. So you have duplexes on the right, some duplexes on the left. The speed limit right there's 25.
Yes.
Corvallis PD for 30 years will write 500 tickets. And it never changes there. People, you can drive there right now. People are going to go 35.
That's what I drive there.
Period.
Frankly.
Period. So
It's true.
because 35 in your head it's wide.
It's
There's two lanes
yeah.
each direction, and you feel like that's the right speed, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So usually, which is weird, it's a human thing. That's usually the right speed to set generally, unless you just have outliers where you have a bunch of accidents or you have kids that are trying to cross over because there's a playground nearby or some other dynamic. We've talked about this kind of crafting our program, it's hard to get your head wrapped around some of these topics, but that is one of those, I wouldn't bat an eye if we made this 35. Now he would kill me, but,
Well, when the streetscape comes in there, it's gonna.
it will, but that's a great example of environmental change to affect speeds. Then there's certain spots that I would much rather have like really good crossing lights like they do in some towns, because that's where I see issues with kids crossing over, those kinds of things. But setting speeds is a difficult thing because the city's taking on some liability. I don't know if they talked about that. You change speeds, you eat that, because why did you change it? And you're saying that you have more expertise than ODOT, who has relied upon the National Transportation Safety Board on setting speeds in certain areas, and you're saying I want to go slower or faster, and there's accidents that come out of that. The city's gonna be, you'll get your butt suit off on something. You gotta be really careful when you make traffic control changes or speed changes. And you just gotta do it and do a study, pay the money, have an engineer come in, make recommendations, and do it the right way, which is fine, but you do your homework before you make a change like that. I think the ones we get more involved in are I think there should be a stop sign right here.
Mhm.
And we just got one, and there's a lady that wants to put a stop sign, and I don't disagree with her, actually, at 13th and College. So if you think of 13th and College, if you're driving up 13th past.
I pass it every day.
right.
I drive
That's
it every
right,
day.
Okay.
you do.
So what do you think? I'm just kidding. So it's just an interesting dynamic, because it is weird, because it's like
Yes.
it's like 19th and Applegate by the school.
Mhm.
Yes.
One way, you don't have to stop.
Right.
So you're just driving. You gotta think of it if you don't live in town too, right? You're driving along, but there's cross traffic that stop. When I first came to work here, I had difficulty remembering that people that are coming north and south have to stop.
Right.
Well, that's what happens. Some people say that about 13th, because it's kind of a three-way. Even though there is cross traffic, 99% of the traffic is
It's
westbound
right.
on College. They come to the stop, and people that come down don't have to stop, and a lot of people make them turn onto College.
Right.
So it's this funky. So what do you think? Do you think that we should have a stop sign there, a four-way stop?
I do, but I would not like it. The
The
problem I run into is like when I'm going north and people are coming in going west,
Okay.
everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, in general, people do rolling stops at that intersection when you're on College Street.
Right.
And when you're going north-south, sometimes it's hard to tell if someone's actually going to stop or not,
Yeah.
Because they're rolling.
because they're rolling, and to be honest, you have to get out there pretty
Yeah, you
well
do.
to see
Right.
if traffic's coming.
Well,
So it always looks like they're just going right through, even if they're not. And so then you, as the northbound or southbound, you react to the car coming out.
100% true.
Yeah.
So-
Whereas if
so
you had to
lady-
stop,
So a lady sent a thing in saying, hey, let's I've had some near misses there. Now, what's funny is I looked in our system. We have never in our system had an accident there,
Right.
ever. So that's the first thing I always look at, and then talk to the people. Guys, have we written tickets there? Has that been an issue? Maybe we have complaints before, and I can't remember a time when somebody's called in and said, hey, I'm concerned about this intersection, which doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that that's not, because there's other areas in town where we've had that issue. But that's one of those ones I've always felt funky at that intersection.
Yeah,
it
it is
feels
weird.
funny to me when I drive through it,
Yeah.
but
the one that gets me and still gets me is taking out the right turn without stopping
on
on
13th,
Pioneer and
on Pioneer. So
13th.
you know why that got added?
No.
It's because the fire chief's son got hit by a train there, his car.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. That's the reason.
It's not the fact that it was the fire chief's son. It was
No.
because somebody who happened to be the fire chief's son ran that, tried to beat the train, and ended up.
But his story is that, when you're there, there's a train track that paralleling you as you're
Mhm.
driving, and that the lights are set up for north and
Right.
south traffic,
Right.
not going around the corner.
Right.
So he goes around the corner and
Doesn't see the arms
Doesn't-
coming down.
doesn't see the
gets
arms come down.
underneath
He
it,
gets-
so.
so
So when ODOT
That's
did
why
the
I got changed.
investigation, or in the
Wow.
row,
Yes.
and ODOT did the investigation of what happened there, ODOT discovered that, hey, why don't you have a stop sign there?
it didn't meet their
Since-
criteria for,
Well, they have
space
jurisdiction
between, right?
over stop signs within X number of
That's right.
feet of the highway,
Right.
and so that was within that. It's only a block removed or block and a half
Right.
removed, so ODOT required that we put a stop
I
sign.
love ODOT's my favorite agency.
not me. Ask Chris about that. I use bad words when ODOT comes up. I mean, really, it gets really ugly. They do have like 19th and Applegate, we talked at nauseum about. They have some weird jurisdiction there too, because we always, how come we just have a 4? Why don't we just put 4? And he talked about having a traffic circle there. And ODOT, no, they reach out with a long arm and slap us down, because it's within, they believe it would impact the backing up of the traffic as it approaches Highway 20.
Dude, ODOT is going to fund a study so that they can synchronize the lights between the bridge and south and west of town.
Yeah.
At a cost of $16 million if they go forward with it, and that's their whole plan to mitigate congestion on Highway 23-4.
I know. I sent you that thing that Corvallis, they're gonna pave. I know they did this on accident. They're gonna pave Highway 20 like by Chenard's all the way to the Fulham city limit. So the sheriff sent out an email. I sent it to you. If you look way down, it's all has to do with that traffic thing and about how much money they're spending. They're trying to get ahead of the light, all this stuff about getting the lights timed away and all this. It's like, where is this money? How do they justify spending that kind of money?
$16 million
I know.
So that the lights are synchronized.
See, my idea, we're getting way off topic here, but like when you talk about, if you watch, Dave and I went over, because we, obviously gets backed up in the Philomath and people ask us, hey, Dave Gursky and I have gone and sat and just watched that light. And number one, it's trucks. Trucks kill that light.
Sure.
Because once they open up this route to make it a preferred truck route, that means the traffic's coming both ways. If you watch trucks, it takes them a long time to get up to speed. So if you get 2 or 3 log trucks or trucks in that queue, that's number one. Number two is I think they should get rid of we joke about this. Get rid of all the driveways going into Safeway off of there, because what happens is what I see bad stuff happen is when people do that. I'm tired of waiting, and we've all done it. You both do it all the time. I know. I do it. Is that you get in the queue, cars coming one way, then once you look the other way, and there's cars coming, and you get frustrated. So you go right, and you try to get in the middle, and that's where the accident. They have a ton of accidents in there, and those shopping centers. Of course, you want access and egress there, obviously, but if you watch the close calls, it's people turning in, slowing down to turn in. And it's like if you get a trailer or something, if somebody really slows down, then it backs up all the way to the light. And it's just, you watch it, it's just all day, hours of people turning in and out of those spots.
Sure.
And it's scary. So I think we were talking about how you make changes. If we were running the city, I would look at that as go all the way to the light and turn right and come in from the side, or turn right at 53rd. But then you're backing people up there too. So you'd have to have a longer right turn lane and do all kinds of stuff. But
we could talk for
hours about ODOT. And my blood pressure just,
yes. I'm getting fired up right now.
I will say, now you may not like it, but I was shocked at how quick they came out and extend. They did. Weren't you shocked at how quick they managed that when the Nectar Creek went in? We were having a lot of close calls of people turning into the driveway, going westbound.
Sure.
So they came and we walked it, and they made that left turn lane way about 200 yards longer, and put 2 lanes there so that people could be in the left lane and turn and not obstruct.
Right.
Although people could get that speed going now because they're in the right lane, because they do. But at least we were getting all these super close calls of people turning in and out of that driveway.
Yeah.
But they came out really quick, and then like in a week they had the new line in there. So I will say that every once in a while.
About our local ODOT folks.
They're nice. I mean,
they're good folks. I mean, they've got limited resources and a list load of projects that they got to do, and everything costs a ton of money. So I mean, they're not a hard spot a lot of times too. But that's as most as I'll defend them. But I will say the individuals that I know that I work with daily and weekly,
it's the bureaucracy.
They're great people, and they're doing the best that they can do. And they get frustrated. They get equally frustrated as well, because it's not ODOT. There's so many different departments,
all these
within ODOT, and they're continually like almost battling each other. It's like, well, we always have different opinions on here, so we got to gather our troops and we'll come back to you. And you'll see it's like active transportation is going to town with railroad, which is going to town with maintenance, which is going, and it's like, we got to figure this out internally, and then we'll come back to you with hopefully like something from ODOT, but ODOT is not.
What was the thing that we got
That's
squashed
what
because the trucking group that was gonna try to
Well,
squash
they're
this?
still looking
Oh,
at
the how wide the lanes are.
11-foot lanes within the. yeah,
So they have these advisory groups that advise them, as you know, and they have weight, and they could squash
Oh, it's
projects
way
in
above-
towns that
sure.
you would never think that they could.
Yeah, it's
Like how wide a road, a
multi-
street is in Fulham.
multi-million-dollar trucking companies that are on these advisory groups saying, we don't want 11-foot lanes, we want 12-foot lanes.
And so you gotta change all your whole plan and all your engineering to, because it's some group, you know.
Right.
That's how it works. I don't wanna keep you guys long. I know we try to keep these to hour. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
do have one more question.
You should.
It's from a community member
Yes.
that talked to me yesterday. And she was mentioning where she moved from, their community had a really active, I was at another state,
Uh-huh.
like a cadet program for high school students to volunteer with.
Yeah,
the police
okay,
department.
so that's a long, we've had this discussion before, you weren't paying attention, but, no, I'm kidding, not you, but we
Yeah,
talked
that's
about this a
right.
lot. Here, we used to, when I first came here, we had a reserve program and we had cadets come. The problem is now in today's hiring environment, we would spend a lot of money buying them equipment, buying them all the stuff, send them to training, and they get hired by some other agency immediately. And nobody's doing it hardly at all. The bigger agencies will do it, and then, because they can, and they absorb them themselves. But it got to the point where every single person we would have as a reserve we'd have them right along. We spend all these hours. We got man-hour training, and then they get hired by Benton County, or they get hired by OSP. And it's just, for small agencies, it's really hard to keep a program like that going.
Is it fair to say that it costs more to have a reserve than the benefit that you get from having a reserve?
Yeah, we can't even keep a reserve. So the cost, projection of that, hey, we're gonna have this, we're gonna send them to firearms training, we're gonna take them out to all the stuff that we do and have somebody riding with somebody and you're spending time training them. That's a hidden cost because we're not paying the person, but we're spending people time training and then they get hired. So yeah, I'd love to have a reserve program because they're the best like farm club you could ever have, ever. And we were at the very beginning, remember we had 2 or 3 people and we get them 2 or 3 months in, they're gone. So we stopped even trying because it's frustrating. It's great because they're getting this free training from us. They go and they get hired and
That's great. It's great service for them.
Exactly. There's a benefit. Like I've told everybody, you learn more as a police officer training somebody else than doing the job yourself.
Sure.
It is super hard to train a new recruit in a stressful environment at a call for service. Like you're trying to teach a brand new person how to handle 2 people fighting each other and how to do it all legally. And you learn a lot instructing somebody else. That's why I've got 2 guys going to FDO school right now, because if we ever do get a new person, I want them to my newer people to train them because it's great training environment. But it's super hard. I wish I could do it. Corvallis does it because they have cadets and they pay them and they do like what we're talking about with the community service officer position. They can pay. They have money to do that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, are there grants and things are there state grants or federal grants that could fund a cadet or nothing like that?
No, it's not really a money issue.
Okay.
If you asked anybody around the county, us, all the small agencies around, everybody's got rid of all their reserve programs. So you just can't. The counties can do it because they have special positions, like they have the summer river patrol. They have 3 or 4 positions, and they hire people to patrol the rivers, and they're always young, 18, 19, 20-year-old college students, because it's a cool thing to do. Dave Gursky has done it. I mean, some of my guys that work for me have done that before. But they have those programs. They have the posse programs. They have different programs. We aren't big enough and have those programs to do it. So I'd love to do it, but even getting a volunteer plus you have to spend money on all the other ancillary stuff. So even if you have a high school volunteer in the office, they have to have them lead certified. They have to have a background check to be in the office around, confidential documents, those kinds of things. And that's an expense. And then they're gone. So paying the rear end. But it would be great. It's just the system has kind of changed over time to where, if everybody's fully staffed and there's no hiring competition between agencies and everybody made the same amount of money, you can have a program like that and keep them.
Because
Because,
everybody else is doing programs.
yeah, and everybody else, yes, that's right. So you want to, the best possible thing is the county, they used to hire only their own reserves. That was the criteria. They hired only reserves that have been through their problem and volunteered for a year, because you used to get 100 people testing for 2 or 3 positions. Now it's the opposite. Now, you get 3 people testing for 12 positions. So you're just trying to find somebody that can pass a background check, which is really hard in today's world, because all those young whippersnappers. But the last thing, do you have any other backup on that? I made this, and usually we have a conversation because these things come up for budget, and I'll get you this, Catherine. It's just a little chart I made of our, I bring this up because when you guys go to look at the budget, these look like line items that you guys are funding in our budget, because each one of these will have a dollar figure attached to it when you guys see the budget. But it's really not. We just get a lump of money. If you were to add up all these things that we spend, this would be like $150,000 or $200,000 worth of stuff. We, over the years, Dave and I and Chris, and when Joan was here, we have made these line items to better track how we spend money. So when I first got here, we had about 10 of these, 12 of these line items. Now we have 50 of them, because it makes it easier for me to project how much we're spending on things every time a budget cycle comes around. So I just wanted you to know and go over some of these things if you had any questions on what they are, because some of them are confusing. But there is no line item for accreditation. Even though you saw that $7,000 figure earlier, that's just a number that we know is we're going to spend about that much based on the last 2 or 3 years. So we're not actually making a budget with those line items each individual. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we just separate it out so it's easier to track and identify what we're spending money on. But we do move money around when we know, like, let's say I spent a lot more money in evidence supplies this year than we did last year. I'll say, hey, we need to bump up the budget by $3,000 this year, or accreditation, because we're using this new system. We need to bump it up 3 or 4. So it looks like you're making a line item change. You kind of are, but that's just how we track. So I wanted you guys to know, every one of these items that has one of these 10-5 numbers, Jan keeps copies of everything we spend. As a committee member, you guys ever have, why are you spending so much money on X? Prisoner care. We have a file in there of that line item,
Gotcha.
okay, and the receipts that we've spent that year. So if you ever ask me, what are you spending on, how come you're spending $4,000 a year on tires? I can actually go pull the invoices, and we can look at every single invoice from bags on tires we've spent.
Sure.
So I just wanted you guys to know, every one of those numbers means a file that we keep receipts, everything, travel, training, anything on this list. Those receipts are in there for you guys to review if you guys ever have an issue on it.
What's RAIN?
RAIN is the Regional Automated Information Network. See, I like acronyms. That is a system that every police agency subscribes to get other people's police reports electronically.
Okay.
So we're in our consortium here with about 8 agencies that we use the same report writing system, but Salem PD doesn't use it, nor Portland doesn't. So if we need a police report for you that you got arrested in Portland for DUI, the only way to get that is you log into the system and you do a request, and it gets texted to you.
Gotcha.
Every police report.
Okay.
So it's actually we're required to have it.
Gotcha.
It's one of those weird.
The reason that came
It's
is because we
there's
have,
other RAINs.
there's other RAINs.
There's about
Yes,
10. Corvallis PD's report writing system, the one that used to actually create police reports, used to be called RAIN.
Oh, okay.
So now it's called WV Ops is what our new thing is. So I'm just thinking of it, if there's anything on here. I meant like contract services. What kind of contract? We have about 20 different things that we contract for. For instance, databases that we have access to do research for investigations. RAIN is kind of a similar thing to that, but even though it's got its own line item. Evidence.com, when we do electronic evidence, all of our body cam, even though there's a body cam line item for the physical equipment, we store all of our body cam data on evidence.com, and we pay a fee for that. And we have a contract for that. We have a contract with a tow company. We have a contract for this. Our old report writing system, which is called Justice, has police reports from 2019 back 20 years. Well, we can't just throw it away.
Sure.
So we actually have to pay a fee every year just to access our old data,
Right.
which is in a database, and it's just sitting there. But we get those reports out regularly.
Sure.
And it's just, I've got a folder of all, an accreditation requirement that we have is, do we have to have a folder in the office with all of our active contracts that are signed available for review. So Just throwing that out. If you guys ever want to have the need to see who we contract with,
Right.
we have contracts for everything. All of our interagency agreements and all of our contracts are all there. So
And youth services, what would that be related to?
the Safety Town
Okay.
costs we buy bikes for the bike rodeo that we give away as prizes. We hire a couple kids to help us lay out the tracks and be volunteers. We pay the older kids like $50 or something every year to help manage the kids, wrangle the kids and do that. So it's just a line item we've had for years, and it's just all of our programs.
Okay.
By the way, a lot of people look on here and says, where's Percy on here? I don't know if you know this, but the dog, there's no cost to the city for the dog. We have and I don't know if Catherine knows this, we have a foundation, a police foundation that we formed about 4 or 5 years ago, that is private money donations that go into that to fund different things. So we can pay stuff like for the gym equipment next door. It's anything the city doesn't normally fund that we think we might need. Like we just bought, I know it sounds like a weird thing to buy with money, but we bought boot warmers. These devices when your feet are all wet in the wintertime for the guys, you put them over and it dries them so they come on the next shift, they're dry. That's something we just don't spend city money on. We say, oh, it's a foundation, we get their permission. Well, they pay for everything for Percy, his medical, insurance. We get the food donated, any kind of thing that happens that we just had him housed for a week while we put the carpet in next door, and the foundation pays for that.
Nice.
And all of his toys, everything. So there's no city money coming out to pay for him.
Mhm.
So,
Nice.
so we do have that, and we just bought some new gym equipment, about $4,000 with the gym. We're going to buy 4,000 or 5,000 more coming up. So
Make the city sound kind of heartless.
you are heartless. You're too. You are heartless.
Budget season's coming.
Yeah, but it is.
Is it ever?
Why? And then the question will come up: Why can't the foundation pay for that? It's what's the official budget word? Supplanting. If we have a foundation, we can't supplant. The foundation can't supplant for normal operational needs. It's actually a crime.
Sure, yeah.
So
Because that's a way to curry.
that's a way to curry favor, and it's a way to
Yes.
get to see, well, hey, why don't we just let the foundation pay for it this year, and then next year we'll switch the money over to them, whatever. So some of the chili cook-off money goes to both our foundation and the sheriff's office has a foundation. Then we give it away to charities every year. There's also a charitable component to that, and that money gets filtered through the foundation and gets donated to charity. Last year we gave $4,000 to the ABC House, and then they gave $4,000 or $5,000 to the ABC House. So that's a way for us to do a charitable donation from city employees that doesn't come out of the city budget.
Nice.
So
And how are our vehicles? How are the current ones we have? Are they?
we just, for the first time ever, thank God, I'm Brown Nose and Chris here. Chris and Mike have done, this is a major issue with most police agencies because the cars run 24/7. We've finally got a long-term vehicle replacement plan that we work with Mike and Chris on. So let's talk about vehicles for a second. It's been a nightmare because we ordered our last vehicle last June 30th and we still don't have it. So if you'll notice on the budget, which I don't have in front of me, there's an equal rise and fall of maintenance fees and costs of these cars to how often we buy a new car.
Right.
Yeah.
So we figured it out that we need a new car every other year to offset. Because this year we spent $17,000 on maintenance on stuff breaking. So when you get up 10 to 12,000 is about normal. When you start getting, one year we had like $26,000 and because we didn't buy a car for a couple of years.
Right.
So we've got a schedule now where we're going to buy one every other year, and Mike is putting budget money in every year to pay for 2 years, 3 years out. So we'll have, when we come to 2024, we'll have money in the budget as we go along, as opposed to 1 year help pay. Because then it becomes, well, do we want to spend $55,000 on a police car this year? No, that sucks. It's something nobody wants to spend money on. But if we budget it and spend a little bit every year, making that purchase every other year is way easier.
And are there electric police cars?
That's a good question. I don't think there is. I don't know of anybody that does them.
Yeah.
Everybody right now, because we're really going back on pursuits. Pursuits used to be very common, and now we've got it so clamped down on what you can pursue in our policy and with our agreements that the high speed cars that we used to need for pursuits are going away, and you'll see a lot of agencies are going over to SUV, mid-size SUVs. The two cars we ordered are two Ford which are considered, they're similar to like a Ford Edge, but they're
Okay.
called Fusion, can't remember what they call them, interceptors. They gotta sound like a macho police name. So people are getting, and a lot of agencies are going to pickup trucks because we have so much gear and we haul stuff around, are going as patrol vehicles. Corvallis has got 2 now. And I could see going to like Ford F-150 Lightnings. The problem is they're still cost prohibitive.
Sure.
A Lightning is still $75,000 with no gear in it.
Yeah.
Whereas our cars, we get a good deal on the cars. The equipment that's so expensive. The cars are about $30,000. All the equipment inside, the radio and all this stuff is about 20.
Right.
So it's $50,000, and 20 of it's stupid equipment, and all the gear inside,
Right.
roll cage and the prisoner area. And all, it's ridiculous. So we've got it. So we ordered a car last June, and then we ordered a car for this next budget cycle. You guys are for this budget cycle, because we don't have a supervisor car right now because we bought one for $3,000 about 5 years ago from the sheriff. It's got 300,000 miles. It doesn't run. So we made the big mistake. At the time we needed to do it, but we bought 3 cars with tons of miles on them, and there's bad that goes with that because you have maintenance issues. And it's
It's a
just
short-term solution.
it's short-term solution for a bad problem, but it's bad for morale. To just be honest with you, this is people's. They drive around.
Sure.
It's their office. It's their safety. It's everything that they do all day, every day, and they run 24/7. And it's just part of the cost of doing business, unfortunately. But it's expensive. But if you do it right and you plan it out, and you're getting rid of cars at 80, 90, 100,000 before they're not worth anything. Because right now we're driving cars to 200,000, and we go to sell them, we can, they have to get $2,000,
Mhm.
and it costs more to take all the gear
All the
out
stuff
than to
out.
sell it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people lease cars, which is it's hard for us our size. But if you do every other year and then you go to sell it, you can maybe make $10,000 off of a used car with 75,000 miles on it, as opposed to 200,000 or a car that's not running. Because the last 3 cars we've had don't run, that we've got rid of. They
At
just
the
don't
very
run.
least, you avoid a lot of that maintenance cost.
The maintenance, it's a killer. Because we go through brakes and tires and stuff, and the cars are just running and they just break.
Yeah.
Well, like Ken suggested too, the new method, and again, we will talk about this in the budget meeting a little bit, because it's one of the other kind of changes this year to the capital improvement plan, and we talked about it a little bit when we were approving that capital improvement plan, was having that schedule, because, we'll be spending $25,000, $30,000 a year for police vehicles, but it's for next year's and the year afters and the year afters and the year afters. And so, yeah, it's a big number that we're transferring, but we're transferring all that liability equipment, and we're actually putting that money aside for future vehicles. So then next year, it'll be just like we do on the schedule now. It's like, hey, it looks like we're due for a vehicle next year, and we're gonna have $50,000 in cash to spend on the vehicle, and then we're still gonna put money forward for future vehicles at the same time. It's just a lot easier on the budget committee, I think on the city council, to justify, hey, we're gonna put another $5,000 towards this vehicle, as opposed to we gotta drop $55,000 this year, $50,000 this year. From last year's budget to this year, it's a $50,000 hit. It's just harder to justify.
Sure.
And then you end up trying to go without.
And that's what happens
You
on my
get
side.
tight and
Yeah,
go
to
without,
be
and-
selfish. That's the easy thing to say. Oh, we don't need that this year. Let's wait another year. Which like I've come to meetings before 3 or 4 years ago. We're spending $29,000. Seriously, Catherine remembers it. $29,000 on maintenance. Are you kidding me? Because we decided not to buy a new car. If you took 20 of the 29,000, the next year you can have a new car. And it's bad. It's better to plan it over time and just accept that that's a cost of doing business, and just plan it. And then in the long run, the city makes out better because we can do something with the used car on top of that. Because right now, you should see these cars. It looks like, I won't say, they get beat up, man, bad, and they smell, and people are urinating in the back and doing all kinds of bad things, and you can't get the smell out, and it's not. You've been on ride along, haven't you? Have you been on ride
I
along
haven't
yet?
yet. No.
What are you waiting for?
I've been traveling for work, man.
Yeah, you
I'm
have,
waiting for the sun.
Same thing with you, Catherine. Hey, you guys on this committee should go on it. You should go.
I want to.
I know
was
you
waiting-
do.
I was waiting for it to be nice.
I know the weather.
Summer
It's better when the
weather,
weather's
good
nicer.
Yeah.
But you guys should go. And then
Once
you
the
can
cars have been cleaned.
then you can ask all the questions to the officer directly. It's a good experience, and it's sometimes it's fun.
and servicing the firearms, how often do you replace them and the
We're
servicing?
due
And
probably next year.
Okay.
They say most agencies do them every 5 years.
Okay.
We did ours the year I came here, so it's been 8. But what the beauty of that is if you have them over 5, the companies that do them will let you trade in if you change brands. So that's the big thing. You go, like right now we have Smith & Wessons, and Glock and Sig Sauer, we get all the time. We have this replacement trade-in that you take those and you basically get the guns for free. But then you're committed to all their little things like trigger replacements and wear part replacements and having to buy a new holster because they want you to buy it through them. You're paying $100 for a holster. So they make their side money off it, and then they go and they advertise that your agency is using their equipment and blah, blah, blah. And so SIG is hitting us hard. I have a SIG I personally own. I like them better, but everybody likes Glocks. I hate them. But we're talking about doing some testing and getting a trade in. So the only thing we would have to buy as a city is probably the holsters, because the holsters don't. Everybody but us has gone to 9mm. Most women, the hand size 9mm fit. So Corvallis, PD, and Benton County have all switched over to 9mm. They're smaller, and they're lighter. And we're the last agency that hasn't. They've hitting us up because we want to all have on the same stuff. And so that's this coming year we'll be talking about changing over to a 9mm. I don't think it'll be a heavy cost other than probably $600 or $700 for holsters.
And then the training component.
The training, we wouldn't train anything different unless the gun was had some like weird thing on it, like a safety that we're not used to. And all the guns now nationwide are pretty much, they look exactly like a Glock, and they work exactly like a Glock. As a matter of fact, if you looked at a Glock and our Smith & Wesson that we use, you can't tell them apart. I mean, they're the same shape, size, all the components, where the buttons are, and the SIGs are the same way. So they're doing that so that people, like if you get in a firefight and you have to use somebody else's gun that's from another agency, you can operate it. So the training really wouldn't change.
Okay.
Now, if you go to a Beretta or something like that, where they have a lever that's on the different side, like Berettas are because they're European, the safety's on the other side, you would have to do a bunch of training on that and spend some extra dollars. But I don't think we'll have to spend any money on training.
Nice.
We do send guys to armory classes to work on the gun, so we don't have to send them out because it's super expensive to have a gun worked on. So Mark and now Jacob Kuhn are both certified armorers for our guns, so they can trade out triggers and they can repair and do stuff with the sights and different things. Because if you send it out, it's like $300 to have a sight change. Well, our guys can do it free, and the class is free, except they have to go on a day off. But it's way cheaper to have a couple guys that are certified armorers. So we have 2 now, which is good.
But since Mark's retiring, right?
Huh?
But you said Mark was
If
retiring.
he goes, he could have retired technically 2 years ago. Can't get rid of the guy.
We love him. We love
We
him.
do.
Mark's a 10. He's a 10.
He is a good guy.
But anyway, I just want to provide you guys this. If there's any questions as you guys go through the budget season that you guys want to just reach out to me and say, how come we're spending $3,000 on this? Please do send me an email. So I want you guys to be able to educate the rest of the council if there's something that pops up. And I'll open it, it's open wide. If you guys have it, I give you this for a reason.
Sure.
If you guys say, why are you spending $1,000 a year on transcription? Well, if you ask me that question, I'll tell you, every once in a while the district attorney says, hey, I want that whole video that you took transcribed for a jury trial, and we have to pay it. I'll at least give you an answer that you can have an intelligent reason why you want to say yes or no on the budget issues. So please reach out if you guys have anything that you have a question on. I will tell you, there is no fluff in our budget. It's basically a zero sum. Here's how much money we spend. The numbers that go up are the personnel dollars for cost of living raises and stuff, and different little things that have gone up in certain things because of a contract. But our numbers are based on last year's real numbers, and if we know there's a rise in a cost for something, that's the number. There is no, hey, let's throw 10 grand in here for X. All these things are real life numbers from last 2 years budget cycles.
Gotcha. And we know like the vehicles are supply chain stuff.
Yep.
Are there any other things that you are worried about as far as being able to actually get the stuff, not from a budgeting standpoint, but
no, everything else we've got ammo and stuff like that was really clogged up for a while. And the only bad thing that sucks not having a gun shop in town, we used to trade seized guns
Thought you were gonna say your old ammo.
No. So we traded, we would trade Wes like 20 or 30 seized guns that we're gonna melt,
Mhm,
and he would give us ammo in exchange.
Sure.
And it's about $2,500 a year for ammo. So our firearms, that number this year that you'll see in the budget, it's like $3,000 that's a real number this year. Usually we get away with not having to spend it.
Gotcha.
But this year we're gonna have to spend it because I don't have anybody local that would do that anymore. So we have to burn up a bunch of guns.
How
So
many guns do we seize every year?
we seize on average about 35 or 40 guns a year, illegal weapons. I mean, weapons that somebody possessed them illegally or used them in a crime or in a car, or a guy that's a felon that we've stopped that has a gun that's not supposed to have it. We take a lot of guns for people during suicide events that the families don't want them anymore.
Sure.
Because one of our policies, which has been great, if we go to a call where somebody is having a suicidal ideation of some sort, our policy is to seize the gun for 30 days for safety.
Sure.
And then a lot of time, which is good, could save the person's life. In a week, they might want to kill themselves with it. We keep it. And then we try to talk the family into, if this person had these thoughts, do you really want to have this gun in the house? And a lot of times they'll sign it over to us, which has been, and the judge has helped us with that. And it's been, and the city attorney has been a really good program. And I mean, that's, you talk about suicide, there's only a couple ways to do it. If you got a gun in the house and you've got these issues already, get the gun out. We'll keep the gun forever if they want, for safekeeping. And we've got a number of guns in there that are just there and we can't do anything, they're just there. And it's just better that they're there than in somebody's house. And we haven't destroyed them, but
Sure.
but we destroy 25 or 30 guns or trade them in every year.
Nice.
And there's some nice guns in there I'd like to own, but it makes you sick one.
Right.
But if you're a gun person, but yeah, that's just our policy, and it's worked out. I think it's worked. You can't tell if you saved any lives, but we think we have.
Sure.
You know, there's no numbers, but I think it's a good program, and that's how we do it.
You too.
Anything else? I just want to open that up for you guys, Catherine. If you guys see going through the budget, she's been through a number of these, and both of you have now, but gone through a number of our line items. There's no hidden numbers there. They're all real numbers, and we can show them to you if you ever have any issues. I hate getting into this. Oh, why are you spending this? Here, it's not, we don't buy toys. We don't buy $900,000 vacuum machines for public works. We don't do that kind of stuff. It's all real. It's all real dollars.
It's all real things.
It's all real things.
That's right.
But it's all,
Sorry, Kevin.
it's super, super transparent. If you guys, that's why I like to educate you guys on the committee. If you guys see something, I keep saying this over and over again, but somebody on the committee will ask you guys, because you're on the committee, on the big budget committee. How come we're spending, why do we need another car? Why are we spending, what's Lane County Dispatch? Why do we have to pay them? You know, if you have those questions, shoot me a text or an email. And I'll be at the first meeting tomorrow night, so.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Not that I can think of.
So,
A tentative meeting for June 14th, that would be the Tuesday after.
Okay.
Does that look right?
I'll go look.
June 14th, tentatively. Councilor Bisco, do you have anything else before we get ready to adjourn this meeting?
I don't.
Okay.
That's good, right? That means you've soaked it all in, and I have answered every single question that you could ever want. I love that.
There you go. Well, if there's, Councilor, do you have anything?
Good.
Anything?
All right, if
Okay.
nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Great, thank you guys,
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Now I
you.
can check all my texts.
Yeah.
Take it off airplane, is that what it is?